was sitting outside the classroom waiting to go in, and I saw an airplane hit the tower of a TV. You know, the TV was obviously on, and I used to fly myself, and I said, well, there's one terrible pilot. And it said it must have been a horrible accident.
Jamie McIntyre. And Jamie, you got very close to where that plane went down.
That's right, Judy. A while ago, I walked right up to next to the building was firefighters were still trying to put out the blaze. The fire, by the way, is still burning in some parts of the Pentagon. And I took a look at the huge gaping hole that's in this side of the Pentagon, in an area of the Pentagon that has been recently renovated, part of a multi-billion-dollar renovation program here at the Pentagon. I could see parts of the airplane that crashed into the building, very small pieces of the plane on the heliport outside the building. The biggest piece I saw was about 3 feet long. It was silver and had been painted green and red, but I could not see any identifying markings on the plane. I also saw a large piece of shattered glass. It appeared to be a cockpit windshield or other window from the plane. Back here, the fight goes on to put out the fire inside the Pentagon. The heat from that blaze was described as absolutely intense, and the number of casualties here has still not been released. Dozens of people were taken away in ambulances, and the Pentagon is still not releasing any figures on deaths. But clearly, people who had offices in that what is now a huge gaping hole in the side of the Pentagon, clearly there were some people killed in this tragedy. Judy?
Jamie, Aaron was talking earlier, one of our correspondents was talking earlier, I think it was Bob Franken, with an eyewitness who said it appeared that Boeing 757, the American Airlines jet, landed short of the Pentagon. Can you give us any better idea of how much of the plane actually impacted the building?
You know, it might have appeared that way, but from my close-up inspection, there's no evidence of a plane having crashed anywhere near the Pentagon. The only site is the actual side of the building that's crashed in, and as I said, the only pieces left that you can see are small enough that you could pick up in your hand. There are no large tail sections, wing sections, a fuselage, nothing like that anywhere around, which would indicate that the entire plane crashed into the side of the Pentagon and then caused the side to collapse. Now, even though if you look at the pictures of the Pentagon, you see that the floors have all collapsed, that didn't happen immediately. It wasn't until almost about 45 minutes later that the structure was weakened enough that all of the floors collapsed.
Stephanopoulos is down in Lower Manhattan today. George, I don't know if you heard a little earlier me raise this question, which was actually raised by ABC's Jackie Judd as we look at these areas down below. And the video of where the towers used to stand and where is all the rubble gone. And have you been able to, is there any way you can answer that question?
I'm sorry, Peter, I didn't get the question.
Okay, I apologize. Jackie Judd and several other people keep asking us, when you look at where the towers used to stand, there is surprisingly so little rubble. Where did all the rubble go?
It's a very good question, Peter, and I have asked some people who've been doing some of the rescue and recovery work this morning. If you look behind me, you can see the very remains, the skeletal remains of the World Trade Center. And one volunteer, Robert Gerlinski, explained to me the reason there's so little rubble is that all of it simply fell down into the ground and was pulverized, evaporated. Now, I should say, though, for the last several hours, there's been a steady stream of dump trucks and other very large vehicles carrying out debris, including burned out hulls of cars, the burned out hulls of police cars and others. And that's been going on for several hours now. One of the volunteers I talked to said they've been doing it since about 6 a.m. this morning. Secondly, Peter, there's been an increased military presence here this morning. There are many Humvees, those military jeeps, including one with a manned machine gun on top. We have National Guard divisions from the 69th, 258th, the 105th and 42nd divisions. Mostly they're doing crowd control and protection and recovery, but there are some armed guards as well. Peter, I apologize. I've lost all hearing here.
Well, I did momentarily. Can you hear me, George? If somebody could...
Try that again.
George, do you hear me?
Now I hear you, Peter.
Okay, you just keep talking. It's wonderful what you're reporting. It's very interesting. So you just keep talking as long as you want, and tell us as much as you've learned, and we will try to support you with pictures of what is happening at the time.
Peter, I'll do the best I can. I think I heard your question, but I'm not really sure, sort of going in and out. Let me just try and describe what's happening here. This is one of the main thoroughfares coming out of the World Trade Center, one of the main thoroughfares for the police recovery vehicles, the environmental vehicles, the dump trucks, and other vehicles that have been taking debris out of the World Trade Center for the last several hours. One of the most interesting notes I should add, Peter, is that from the volunteer workers I've spoke to said there has been very little recovery of bodies. I know we heard overnight about the very good rescue stories, 5 or 6 people found alive, but for the most part they haven't found any bodies at all because the recovery workers feel they're buried so deep into the rubble.
Okay, George, many thanks indeed. George Stephanopoulos. Are either one of them there at the moment? Okay. We're waiting to talk at some point. This is George Stephanopoulos answering the question, I hope, for many people who've asked it, about why there is so little rubble on the ground, and we'll reconnect with him as quickly as we can. And because, as we watched it so many times on television in the last 25 or 26 hours, when these 2 huge buildings, 110-story buildings tall, fell onto themselves, much of the material that makes up the structure of the building was simply pulverized as it fell upon itself. Now, it is also true, we're fairly certain we can say, that a good portion of it was driven, at least of the lower stages of the building, was driven into the ground. And I suggest this because we've talked to any number of people involved in the rescue operation who have found individuals or tried to locate individuals who are 40 feet below the surface. So there's a lot beneath the actual ground level that we are not always we are just simply not able to see from our perspective. Several
States. Now, you and the president had earlier discussed rules of engagement for taking down a hijacked airplane, but you were the one who gave the direct order to shoot down a plane that you were told, as it turns out incorrectly, was headed for Washington.
Right. That's correct.
What's that moment like?
Well, it was necessary, and it was frankly, I didn't pause to think about it very much, because once one of those aircraft was hijacked, it was a weapon. We'd seen already by that time 3 of them go in to the Pentagon and the World Trade Center in New York. As a result, thousands died, and if we had been in a position to intercept one of those to keep it from striking its target, would we have done it? Absolutely. And what I did was pass on the president's approval of the basic proposition that we would, in fact, authorize our people to shoot down aircraft that had been hijacked and refused to divert. So I saw it as part of my responsibility, but I did it quickly because we had a lot of other things.